Please, everyone, try and sit still. The class is still going on. If you're moving, fidgeting, it really disrupts it, not only for you, but for everybody here.
I have a question, Stuart.
Yes, Risha.
I'm wondering if you can speak about how vulnerability and softness can coexist with strength.
Yeah, it's an interesting question and a good question. Look, in order to have true humility, which is vulnerability and basically a kind of softness about you, compassion about you, in order to sustain that in your life, you need to be so strong inside. You know, you have to have such a strong foundation that allows those levels of life to exist inside you. Otherwise, the world would just rip them away. In order to have innocence, and I don't mean, the kind of innocence we're literally born with, and by the time we're 5 years old, it's gone, Got to spend the rest of our lives building a system to regain it again. But to have that kind of innocence and sweetness and to live with it every day and sustain it, you need foundation, you need a core inside you that is really strong. And that strength just, it's like I keep saying, it's like a lotus flower out of muddy water, I mean, that flower blossoms and it can stay open because you have the roots, the foundation, the grounding in yourself to keep it open. So these things are not tangential, they're not antithetical to each other. Strength and sweetness. One is essential for the other. And I'm not talking about ego strength, and I'm not talking about arrogance and the kind of strength that people have to deal with in the world where people run all over each other. I'm talking about real compassion, unconditional love, the ability to sustain that in a world where life is almost exactly the opposite. That's the strongest person on the earth. And I mean that, it's like, look, again, I'm not a Christian, but it's like, Christ, forgive them. They know not. Can you imagine being nailed to a cross and asking God to forgive everyone? They know not what they do. Extraordinary. It's soft, it's sweet, it's innocent, it's delicious, it's wise. But it came out of such a profound inner development and connection with God that one can say something like that. And it's real, it's not bullshit. We need that kind of inner strength. Otherwise, we live in a world that just rips it right out of us. Innocence is destroyed. Literally, by the time we're 5 years old, it is just ripped out of us. We're born with it. And then we have to rebuild all of that quality in ourselves without, developing fortresses and shields and ways of protecting ourselves. Because ultimately, the ultimate real protection that any human being has is a connection with spirit. That takes an enormous inner strength. To have a huge ego, to demand of other people, to enslave other people, to be a dictator, that's a stupid strength. And it doesn't require any depth. It's all in the mind. And it's all manipulating the world to gain power. And that's not what I'm talking about, because what I'm talking about is real strength. And that real strength supports love, humility, gratitude, forgiveness. I hope that's clear, because I don't know how to make it clear. I hope that registers inside you. Never to confuse ego and imposition of will on other human beings with real strength, which is unconditional love. Allowing the world to be and growing because of what we witness in life, not being at odds with it and judging it according to what our conception is about the way life is supposed to be. Who knows how life is supposed to be? Every day I get up in the morning and it completely destroys any image I might have of what I think life is supposed to be. And I said, well, what is this? You know? And I said, it is. It's just God's world, and it's teaching us all the time. We need to learn how to work on ourselves so we can allow God to teach us, the manifestation of life to teach us what we need to do to grow every day and develop inside ourselves that ultimate reason for being alive, and that is love, joy, happiness. Does anyone else have a question?
I have a question, Stuart.
Yes, Lisa.
I would like to know a little bit more about the double breath. Why exactly do we do it the way we do it, and what does it do to our energy body?
Well, the double breath involves four elements. One is the breath, the other one is the mind. Then there's the need inside us to grow and the will to do it. These four elements will develop a chakra system that's strong enough to give a human being a spiritual life. Now, the mind is the most powerful instrument we have. It also is something that drives us crazy. You know, it's full of tension, it knows it's right, it's wrong, it's this and that. Creates so much tension inside people that it makes a world of constant conflict and a lot of unhappiness. But if the mind, the energy of mind, which is really a powerful energy, is brought into the chakra below the navel, what the Japanese call the hara, Chinese call it the tatian, where the real power is in a human being, the mind itself becomes a surgical instrument that will open you there and allow you to begin to develop what they call chi. Chi is really harmony, balance, foundation, inner strength. That chi will enable the heart to open. And the way to get the heart to open is just simply gratitude. You don't need anything else but gratitude for the heart to open. And then by breathing into the heart, after you feel that gratitude, the breath is life. Every time you inhale, you take in life. Every time you exhale, you let go of a piece of yourself. So you're taking in life, you're bringing it into the heart center, the breath, the prana, the energy of breath into the heart, and that will expand the heart center, strengthen the heart center. Then you hold the breath, you exhale, you take another breath, and you bring it down below the navel. It's the same thing. The mind opens the third chakra, that chakra, but the breath expands it and strengthens it. And when you learn how to breathe into that area, you are taking the whole force of life into that area. That will expand that chakra. So the whole purpose of the double breathing exercise is to open and develop the chakra system. The meditation practice is not a spiritual life, but the meditation practice, by doing it and working at it and developing the chakra system, will make it possible for people to have a spiritual life.
Thank you.
And then, when you're grounded below the navel, then you can draw energy through the sexual area. You should go to my website. I have these posts now, and I have one on Tantra now, two on Tantra actually. And it talks all about what is involved in drawing energy through the sexual chakra and transforming it into the Kundalini force that will activate, that'll activate Kundalini, and Kundalini is our pathway to enlightenment. All of this takes place inside a human being if we develop the system to make it possible. Otherwise, we live with, tension, tension, and a lot of it. And that's what determines our lives. This transforms the tension into a spiritual life. I mean, this thing Rudy developed, I'm telling you, it staggers me when I think how brilliant it was for him to develop that exercise. And it comes from the roots of it are in ancient Hinduism and Buddhism.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's where the roots of it are. But he took it and developed this in order to apply it to this modern world that we live in. Same practice as people have been practicing for hundreds of thousands of years, except the very nature of it makes it possible for us to transform the world that we live in into a spiritual life, if we do it. Extraordinary. I mean, it's the most brilliant thing that I don't know how we came up with it, but, it's totally extraordinary. And he gave it away. The first day I went to him, he gave me this exercise. I give it away. People want to come to class. I don't even know who they are half the time. I have Jennifer get online with them and teach them this exercise, which is so brilliant. And hopefully they practice it over time and they understand the profundity of it and how extraordinary this double breathing exercise is. Great question. Does anyone else have a question? I hope this is all clear. I tried to keep Rudy's meditation as close to the great master I had as I possibly can. I don't want it to become some kind of Indian thing or Hindu thing, because it's for everyone. And everyone here comes from a totally different background. And all it is learning to practice this double breathing. And it doesn't matter what your background is. It just makes your life that much richer. Christian, Jewish, Islam, it's all the Buddhist, it doesn't matter. Hindu. I mean, we used to have an ashram in Kathmandu. It was unbelievable, One of my students, I called her up one day and said, how would you like to go and live in Kathmandu? She said, I would like you to start an ashram, meditation center in Kathmandu. So she went there, we had this huge center there, people, but the incredible thing is that people would come to me and say, this has never happened here, where, the Brahmins and the Chetri and the this one and the that one, they're all studying in your group together, along with Western people and people from all over the East, Tibetans, and they're all studying in this group. I said, yes, that's the way it has to be. They all have chakra systems. And thank God we come from different backgrounds that make life really interesting and have something from that background to contribute to the kind of class that is being taught. But at the basis of it all is that every human being has a chakra system. Every human being breathes. Every human being has a mind. Every human being has needs and will. And if they're used that way, the way I described before, then it builds the system that can enable them to have a spiritual life. It doesn't matter what their background is. The background only makes it better. Whether they're Jewish or Hindu or Buddhist or straight, gay, black, white, purple, orange, I don't care, What I care about is the depth of inner work that people are willing to do on themselves. And if they use this exercise, it's amazing what manifests. And ultimately a connection with God. You become a servant of God in this way. And it doesn't matter what a person's occupation is, or what they do. Everything that goes on in this world is sacred. What makes it not sacred and sacrilegious is the consciousness that people bring to it. They hate their jobs, they hate their families, they hate their this, they hate themselves. You understand? And that's what makes the craziness. Does anyone else have a question? I hope this is clear. You know, I mean, I try to keep it in terms, you know, that are understandable and not get into all these Sanskrit words and all this stuff that people do. I mean, somebody once sent me a website of what they study, supposedly Kundalini Yoga, and I couldn't understand 5 things in the website. It was all just, you know, Sanskrit and this and that and the other. And yet all of this is so basic to just everyday living and everyday understanding. And I believe that's the way it should be, you know? Does anyone else have a question? I loved about Rudy. He once said to me, well, he said to me many times, how am I different than anyone else? He used to tell me this all the time. And I would look at him and I'd see light coming out of him and shock me like unbelievable, you know? And he said, yeah, I like to go to the movies. I go to restaurants. I go out. I have dates and social things and parties. And I live in New York City. I run a business. How am I different than anyone else? He said, Rudy, trust me, you're very different. You're very different. But the very bringing it down to a practical level, the everyday reality of what life is all about, I love, and I still love it. And I think this meditation has to continue being that way. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? I mean, I told this story before. You know, I remember when the first time I ever went up to Rudy's house was where he lived. And he had this building where there was a meditation room on the lower floor, and then his kitchen and living room, and it was a big loft building. And then he lived in his apartment on the top floor. And he invited me up into, you know, the kitchen and living room area of the building. And I'm sitting there meditating with him, and he asked one of his students to bring him a scotch and water. And I'll never forget sitting there thinking, Stuart, I had all these preconceptions about what a spiritual teacher, a guru, is supposed to be. And drinking certainly wasn't part of it. You know, and here he is sipping scotch, and I'm sitting there and meditating. And, you know, I mean, this is early on in my studies with him. I think I was studying with him 3 weeks at the time, you know? And I had a decision to make. I could have gotten up and walked out and say, how could this person be? Or something just struck me, Stuart, who the hell are you to judge somebody who is giving you your life? He wants to have a sip of scotch, let him have a sip of scotch. And I'll tell you honestly, in the 6 years I was with him, I never saw him drink again. It was like God working to get me past my judgment of what a spiritual teacher is supposed to be. And frankly, 6 years with Rudy, I had to surrender any preconception about what I thought a spiritual teacher is supposed to be. I mean, this was a person that was pure energy. And it cut through all of the preconceptions and misconceptions and judgments. And you just had to open and surrender in the greatest depth in yourself and understand that if you do that, you get your life. That was extraordinary. But I'll never forget, we got a scotch and never saw him drink again. It was, it was like God testing me. Stuart, are you going to get caught up in your stupid prejudgments, or are you going to sit with somebody who's going to give you your life? And with him, it was one thing after the other like that. One thing after the other. And being around him as much as I was, I had to surrender. I had no choice, because some of it was unbelievable, how powerful it was and how real it was, and how it cut through all of the spiritual bullshit and got right down to what growing was all about and what being a human being was all about. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, well, thank you. Bless you all for being in these classes. And, there'll be a class on Tuesday, and I'm looking forward to. Oh, I just have an announcement too. One, I keep announcing about this thing on my website. I hope you all go there. Take you 5 minutes. But a lot of that stuff is really an in-depth look at what I teach. And frankly, as I said the last time, I'm really enjoying writing these things. And I'm having a good time doing it, and they have a real element of profundity to them and insights into this meditation practice. The second thing is that some of you are in the West, and I want to tell you, there's not going to be a meditation class tomorrow. Every 2 months, I have to go get a treatment for my eye, for the retina, and tomorrow's the day. So when I do that, it's impossible for me to do the class. So I have this thing I have to do tomorrow. So God bless you all, and thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody on Tuesday. There will be a class Tuesday, definitely.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you. Thank you.